Long before anyone owned a refrigerator, families kept cabbage crisp and tangy through the entire winter using nothing but salt, water, and patience. It sounds almost like a trick, but it was everyday kitchen wisdom. Across the world, from Korean kimchi to German sauerkraut to Eastern European pickles, people discovered that letting certain foods sit and transform actually made them last longer and taste richer. Today, we call it fermentation. Our great-grandmothers just called it Tuesday. Let us look at why this humble, ancient craft is quietly making a comeback. Fermentation is simply the work of tiny, helpful microbes. Given the right conditions, natural bacteria and yeasts feed on the sugars in food and produce acids, gases, and new flavors. That gentle sourness in a good pickle, the tang in real sourdough bread, the fizz in traditional kvass, all of it comes from these invisible little workers. It is not a modern laboratory invention. It is one of the oldest food practices humans have, older than written history in many cultures, passed down hand to hand in kitchens for thousands of years. Nearly every traditional culture had its own ferment. In Korea, families buried clay pots of kimchi to age through the cold months. In Germany and Poland, barrels of sauerkraut lined the cellar. Japan gave us miso and pickled vegetables. India had its fermented batters for dosa and idli. Bulgaria and the Caucasus were famous for their cultured dairy. Even the tang of a proper New York deli pickle traces back to old brining traditions carried across the ocean. Different foods, same clever idea, born again and again, wherever people needed to make the harvest last. The reason our ancestors fermented so much comes down to survival and thrift. A garden gives you far more cabbage in September than you can eat in September. Without freezers, that bounty had to be saved somehow. Fermenting turned a short harvest into months of food. It also made things easier on the stomach for many people and gave flat winter meals a bright, lively flavor. Nothing was wasted, and a jar of something tangy could turn plain bread and potatoes into a meal worth sitting down for. After decades of shiny packaged foods, many families are rediscovering the slow charm of making their own ferments at home. A single head of cabbage, a bit of good salt, and a clean jar are enough to begin. There is something deeply satisfying about watching a jar bubble on the counter and knowing you made it yourself, just as people did for generations. It costs very little and connects you to a long, unbroken thread of kitchen tradition. Of course, if you have specific health questions, it is always wise to chat with a professional first. So today we wandered through the quiet magic of fermentation, the ancient art of letting salt, thyme, and tiny microbes preserve the harvest. We saw how kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, and old world pickles all sprang from the same practical wisdom, and why so many families are bringing these traditions back to their own kitchens. Here at HappyMind Nutrition, we love shining a light on the simple, time-tested foods our grandparents trusted. If stories like this feel like a warm kitchen to you, consider subscribing so you can join us for the next one. Thank you for spending a little time here today.